There's something about the journey that gives us a powerful reminder that our struggles do not define us. They actually discover us, our authentic selves, who we were always meant to be. Today, I welcome guest Sara Kelsey from Iowa, who shares her miraculous recovery from illness to broken relationships, alcoholism, and more. But the most amazing part about Sara's story is how she shares when she surrendered to God because she just felt there was no other way. And that was the turning point and the beginning of her life's discovery. Let's welcome Sara and hear how her pain has turned into purpose and the transformation is now her testimony.
The beautiful Sara Kelsey. Hi, Sara. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. How about you?
Good. I am here joining with you today because you have an amazing story that I feel so many people will benefit from. And just it's such a pleasure and honor to hear your story and that you are willing to share it with me and others. And I want to basically talk about how you had a situation, you basically coped with alcohol, you went to sobriety, you are now in the becoming and the surrendering, and I'm going to let you talk and take it away. And if, I'll ask questions on the way and basically let me know how, let's talk about the trauma and your story and go from there.
Okay, sounds good. So essentially, when I was very young, when I was 17, I was diagnosed with a digestive disease that caused me issues for the majority of my life. In addition to that, I kind of had some issues with my parents that caused me to have some identity issues, not knowing really who I was or how I fit into things, that caused me to rush into relationships, rush into a couple of marriages, kind of not really know what I was looking for in any kind of relationship that I was involved in, because the other thing that I was doing to look for a way to deal and to cope and to better understand and to fit in was drinking. And it wasn't your standard, it wasn't what you think of as the alcoholic drinking of morning to night drinking. I was in my 20s, I was going out with my friends and drinking, but I was drinking until I blacked out. And I was doing it, that's how I was coping. I was running away. And this would continue to be a coping mechanism that I would use throughout the years on and off as different things came up, through divorce, through bad relationships, through abuse. Even in then, when I met my husband that I'm currently married to, we have, together we have 4 wonderful kids. With them, we've built a wonderful family. And in the beginning, we both just had a history of going out. It was something that we loved to do together. And we would do that. But then that's what led to toxic fights in our home, was overconsumption. So we would drink too much, come home and fight. We would then be not present parents to our kids because hangovers, too tired, didn't get enough sleep, don't feel good, whatever the reason may be. And this went on for quite a while until 2020. We adopted our daughter. She was actually a foster care placement, and she had was born with some extra needs as well. So we really had all hands on deck with her. So that meant, since we weren't a blended family any longer, because previously kids were going to their other parents every other weekend, so we were free to go out and continue our lives together. Now someone needed to be home, so we were going out alone. So then the other person would come home, the same fight would happen, but one person was sober. The other person was way too intoxicated. And it would go on like that. And it was just, and then it became a competition of essentially who could do the least. It was a laziness contest. And one day I finally had my wake up call. I was out drinking and driving, and I caused property damage that I did not remember. I woke up and my husband told me about it. I had no idea.
Wow.
Thankfully, no one was involved. So I'm so thankful for that. By the grace of God, I got home and no one was hurt. That it is not lost on me, the stupidity and danger of that. That day, I decided not to drink again. It's something that we had discussed previously, like, yeah, we should cool it. We should not drink, but there was never any real follow through. It slip up and nobody would say anything and we'd move along. So I just kind of told Brandon I was done, and I said, that's up to you, what you want to do. And he chose to stop drinking as well. And about a year later, we started attending church. We both were baptized about 6 months after we had been attending. I had been a lifelong Catholic. We were attending now just a Christian church, something that I had never experienced in my life, but was speaking to me so much more. I actually, at this point, had gotten a further diagnosis with my gastrointestinal stuff, and actually had a feeding tube in my stomach that had been in there since 2019 was the original placement date of my feeding tube. And I was told that it would be permanent because of the extent of the surgeries that I'd had and just how things were. I was told, we've taken it out before for you when you didn't need it, but this time, this is it. You're going to have this forever. So even if you stop using it, you're going to have that. So I had this tube. I hadn't used it in well over a year. It just was. And it's uncomfortable to have one, but it's not necessarily painful. It's just something that you tolerate. But in October,
right, Sarah? Sorry.
Yes. No,
okay.
You're fine. Yes, so it's literally just a tube in your stomach. There's a genuine hole in my stomach with a tube to it. So what can happen? And then they blow up a balloon on the other end of that inside of your stomach. That's how it stays in. And so what can happen is if there's an issue with the balloon, that tube can fall out over time. And so if it does, you have to get it replaced really timely. So that happened to me in October. My tube fell out, and you do have to get it replaced within a couple of hours, really. So I called my surgeon's office. No one was going to be in. So they said, you need to go to the ER. No big deal. I went, they put one in, and I left. Nothing, it was no different than any other time that I had one. Nothing notably different happened. But as it healed, it was a lot more painful. I had like an open wound, and that wound was not healing because it was continuing to be exposed. And it was almost like the balloon wasn't positioned quite right. Because it just wasn't settling down. But the issue when you have something like that is, or in my experience, when you reach out to your healthcare providers with something like that, they're going to ask you to give your body some time to let it settle, because it truly is a foreign object in your body. So your body's trying to push it out. So even if it's uncomfortable, the initial reaction is going to be, let your body have some time. And it makes sense, right? So
Right.
I'm trying to tough it out. And I mean, I've got an open wound. I'm allergic to the tape that's holding the gauze on. So that's raw. It was a mess. So I was so emotional. It got to the point I wasn't sleeping because I couldn't, like, the wound was just so bad I couldn't position myself right. And I was in the bathroom one day just looking in the mirror, trying to, like, clean this up. And I just started crying, and I said, God, please take this pain away. And I just, I meant this wound, please just, like, give me back my tube. And I had never I prayed. I was learning how to pray. The difference in prayer of a Catholic prayer of reciting a Hail Mary or an Our Father and how I pray now, where I talk to God and just openly say what's on my mind. And this was the first time I had ever fully surrendered. And I just sobbed and I said, God, please take this. I don't know what to do. There's nothing I can do. Please take it from me. And so a few days later, I called the surgeon, and they came in, or they had me come in, and it was a different surgeon than I had seen before. And he started asking just a lot of questions. And I was like, I don't know why you're asking me all these questions, like, whatever. And all of a sudden he said, well, what if instead of switching it, we just took it out? And I was like, took what out? And he was like, your tube. And I said, oh, you can't do that. And he said, I can. And I was like, but no, they said. And, like, I explained to him what everyone had told me, and he was like, no, I'm confident we can take it out. I was just in disbelief. And he was like, yeah, it's not a problem. We'll do it. And they took it out, and he had to call a nurse in to help. And all the nurses even knew me. And she was like, wait, where's the new tube? Because she was ready to just change it out. And she was like, wait, no, what are you doing? And I was in such shock when I left that, like, I didn't even understand like, I text my husband, but I didn't process any. I just was like, he took the tube out. And then when I got home, I fully, like, broke because I realized, like, the weight of what happened. Like, I asked God to take the pain away, and I asked what I meant was, like, just the discomfort of, like, my sore and my wound, and to, like, just resettle that. But I gave everything to him, and he took away the entire pain. That site is now almost completely closed up. There is no more, like, my husband gave me a hug that day. I had not had a hug where he was able to, like, wrap his arms around me without a barrier from, like, a literal tube. And, like, not that he was aggressive, but, like, I could tell how much gentler he had been with me for years because he was afraid.
Yeah.
And, like, just to be given that gift back, and to have my kids hug me, and to be able to pull them all the way into me and not have to guard that, has just really led me to share that, like, God doesn't care who you are. He will come to you in the middle of your mess, wherever you are, if you are open to him. And, like, that's what he wants. He doesn't the people who think that they are perfect aren't open to changing. Like, he wants to heal
That's
people, and
so
that's
amazing. Yes, that's so amazing, Sarah, because it's like I tell people this all the time. I'm like, you have to meet God in the mess, because that is the message. The things, the suffering, the sacrifices that we go through, it's not because we are doomed for destruction. It's because we are meant for a discovery, to discover who we are, our value, our self-worth. And like, even like now with you saying about the tube, people are so focused on the bigger things, but really it's the smaller things that mean so much, like taking this tube out and now actually having a warm embrace of a love and that emotion, and feeling that in that hug of your children and your husband. It's amazing, and I think what I'm hearing, and this is me, obviously I am just now talking to you, I've never met you or nothing in that nature, but here in the beginning of your story, you had this sickness and this illness, and almost that you were framed per se as an issue, or there is some sort of issue. And as you stated,
yes,
with your parents, this identity issue. So it was like almost like you were just this foreign piece of mess, let's just say, for lack of better
absolutely,
that that made you, obviously, your self-consciousness, your self worth, like all of that just in the dumps. And that's how it begins then into something bigger, where you're getting, you're going from husbands and you're going to alcohol, and you're having just obviously internal hatred and aggravation that's coming out to through fighting and arguing and that sort of thing too. And the real end of it is that it was really just the missing piece and the missing abandonment of love. You've been wanting from childhood to feel loved as whole and oneness, and it's like you went through all of this destruction, and in the end, now you know how loved you are. It's like that was the piece that you wanted to feel, and all of these things kept getting in the way, and you weren't seeking things to destroy yourself more. You weren't going to the alcohol to become worse off than you already were. You were seeking that love, that affection, that emotion. And as you had just said too, facing God and turning over to God, it's not a you go to him when you need something. It's a relationship. And so now that he saw you doing the work, giving up the alcohol, fighting for, to eat normal as, we normally do, not through a tube, and giving that extra effort, you showed him that commitment too, because relationships aren't a one-way street. It's, it works both ways. And so how amazing is that here you were asking for just something, and you got something that has probably improved everything,
It has improved so much. I'm in the best physical shape of my life. I started working out in June. I'm down 30 pounds just because I had gotten lazy. I had just gotten complacent, and I really feel like it's my responsibility to work out and take care of my body. That's something that I feel really called to do. So I do that 5 days a week. I go to the gym. It's nothing super crazy, but I spend my time and I'm in better shape so that I'm taking care of my health. One thing, like, even with like you said, with the marriages, like, yes, I was seeking that fitting in. So with my current marriage, like, that's just come up and something that we're working on together, because we're in this together. And I've said to him, I know, like, a lot's going to be changing, and I'm asking so much because I never understood whose daughter I was before. I've never read these verses about how I was fearfully and wonderfully made, about how he knew me in my mother's womb before I was ever born. Like, now I know deep down, like, I know in my heart exactly who I am, and
Yes.
like that who he wants me to be. And so I know that I'm okay to stay in this marriage because we're working on it together. And it's not something like, it's not that craving the acceptance. It's working with God at the center now.
Yes. I tell people all the time, I say, listen, and that's actually where bottoms up comes from, is because you literally go to the bottom. And it's like, I remember even in my own personal trauma, I felt like I was looking around and all I saw was debris. It was like half of this, empire I built at one point in time was over here and half of the other was over there. And so I just felt like it was almost like an explosion of my life. But I needed to get to that rock bottom because the foundation isn't the quicksand I was building on, and it isn't the debris that I was building on. It was the solid foundation of God. And that is now where you can build your empire, with a solid foundation, not a rocky one, not a quicksand one, not an unfinished one, or a half this or a half that. And it's funny because, I've heard this, and I say this in so many of my episodes. There was a rabbi that I had listened to from Israel, and he had said, we are all done, we all break in pieces, and you think once you have all these pieces, what am I supposed to do? Well, pieces are how you make a masterpiece, and being a masterpiece, you are a piece of the master, and now it's time for you to build. And
Oh,
isn't
wow.
that just amazing? Yes.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yes, I thought it was so, I say it to so many people because so many people want to focus on the pieces. And it's just because you feel lost. Like, what am I supposed to do with all this? Like I said, mine was debris. Like, it was like half of my life here and there. Like, it was like an explosion went off, right? And once you realize that explosion is actually the supplies or the equipment or whatever you want to call it that you need to build this empire, that's where you're like, it's like the light bulb goes off, And then
Absolutely.
you realize that, you were meant to go to the bottom. You were meant to go, because here's the thing. It is in great love and in great suffering that you come to oneness. Like, think about it. When people pass away, when you have tragedy or trauma, that's when like family comes in from all over, or like people that you don't see all the time, or even friends from, grammar school or whatever. It's the tragic stuff that happens that brings people to oneness. And that is because the way to God is through great suffering and great love. The suffering is what builds that loving foundation. And then that's where now you're supposed to build. Because at the end of the day, he created us. He is our creator, the one. And we are all some of the one. And so we have to follow. It's not your plan. It's not your journey. It's his. It's the creator's. And that's what you have to realize. And people don't, we're so focused on the subconscious mind of what's going on around us and what we have in front of us, where, God is all angles,
Exactly.
So how amazing is that? And I am like so proud of you for even just your accomplishments and even coming to that realization of, what's needed from you in your end of the relationship with God, and now to move forward. And not only that, but your husband as well. I mean, not everybody can see their worth. That has to come through something on your own, and you have to realize it by yourself. And so how amazing that he's even able to open his heart and his mind and see that even he's worth so much more.
Yes.
And that's amazing.
That's something that we are really big on. I will say I started before he did, but I really am huge on talk. positive talk, the power of life and death is in the tongue.
Yes.
I have a friend, one of my friends is really, really good at this, and I reached out to her. One of our Bible study nights, she had done this topic, and I was just like, hey, like, it's almost embarrassing to say this, but I couldn't even tell you the kinds of things that I say to myself in my head. They're so mean. Can you tell me what I do about this? And she actually recommended a book to me called The Things You Say When You Talk to Yourself, which was a really great book. And it just kind of tells you that essentially, as soon as the thought starts, you have to stop it. Like, you don't let it get out. And so I try really hard to keep that in our house, in front of the kids, like, at all times. Like, if it's not a positive, what was its purpose? Was it
That's good. That's
to make a little dig? Like, we don't need it.
Well, if you are so big on working out and going to the gym, think of it this way. The mind is no different than the body. So what you feed yourself, obviously it disperses, right? So if I'm eating McDonald's every day, I'm going to probably be overweight. Obviously my health won't really be in the greatest condition because that's what I'm putting in my mouth. So clearly my body's going to disperse the way that I'm doing that. Well, that's the same thing with the mind. The mind,
Right.
If you keep feeding it negativity, all it has to disperse is negativity. That's all you're feeding it. So if you feed your mind positivity, then that's all it's going to disperse because that's all it knows is positivity. And us as humans, we are all creatures of habit. And what the mind does is the mind is actually the first form that tells us when we're safe and when we're not safe. So that's why consistency is such a key factor in lifestyle changes, whether it's a diet, whether it's an addiction recovery, whether it's a, abuse recovery, whatever it is, you have to be consistent with what you do because then you're training your mind what is normal again and what is safe again versus what wasn't, because that's why a lot of individuals that are leaving even say abusive relationships, they keep going back. And it's not because obviously who wants to go back and get abused?
Right.
Nobody. But what they're doing is their mind is saying, it's not normal. I'm not getting abused today. Go back, because
Right. I don't know this life.
Exactly. So keeping the consistency, and it's really imperative with your husband, even, doing the work as well, and you two doing it for each other, because a lot of times that doesn't work out is when one is still in active addiction, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, you name it, and another isn't. That's almost like a way of someone drawing you back in because you still have that peace over your, it's easier for your
Absolutely.
mind to say, hey, safety's over there. My husband that's still doing, using and stuff, the safety's over there when really it's not,
For
so that's
sure.
even more amazing that your husband is doing this with you. That's awesome. What a power, and you guys will be such a powerful couple too. So that's awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah, it's
Definitely.
been really great.
That's so, and now how is your family life so you have how many children and then you adopted the daughter too?
Yes, so altogether we have 4 kids. I have 2 sons that my oldest is 24 and then my other is 14. Or no, wait, that's wrong. Don't say that. He's 23. I keep mixing it up. Okay. That's terrible. Okay. So my oldest is 23 and then my younger son is 14 and then my stepson is 16. And then our youngest, who is ours, is 5. She will be 6 in March.
Oh, that's cute.
Yes, she's our only girl, and she's the most wild of all of our kids. She's not what you would think. She's not a girly girl, but she's a wild one. So we were her foster parents. She came to us when she was 3 days old. She had been exposed to drugs and probably alcohol, but we don't know for sure. didn't have any classic addiction symptoms at birth that were like really noticeable right away. Like she was discharged right after from the hospital. She didn't have to stay any extra time or anything like that. But as she got older, we started to, and when I say older, I'm talking 18 to 24 months, so not very old, started to notice some behaviors that weren't necessarily the same as what we would have expected, and just kind of wondering what was going on. So we took her to have an evaluation. She was given an ADHD diagnosis, and then there's some other issues that they haven't been able to diagnose yet at this point, just because of her inability to really kind of communicate what's going on. As far as the testing goes, they were pretty limited with what they can do. But like she's been on an IEP since she was 3. When she started 3-year-old preschool, she went right in on an IEP. So I definitely, between my health and then with working with her, because the journey to adopting her through foster care was definitely, that was a journey in and of itself. And then going through just health stuff with her, with them having a hard time giving a real diagnosis, getting proper treatment can be difficult at times, and people just kind of throw their hands up and say, yeah, that is tough. And
I feel like that's the like normal thing that people say when they don't know what to say. They're just like, oh yeah, okay, that's horrible. Like, you're like,
right, and you're like,
no.
I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep advocating then. Like, you're not my answer. Right. Like, that's not helpful to me at all. So, like, spending a lot of time researching and like what I can do for her, how we can help her, just to best communicate and be in situations where she's set up to win and just best function. So, and that kind of led to another transition that was a part of our faith transition as well, is in November of 2024, I actually had opened an insurance business of my own that went, it was not successful at all. I was like losing money, doing very poorly. And I had a friend say to me, you know, have you prayed about this? And I had not. The only thing I knew was I wanted to work for myself so that I could be with my kids more. I knew that my daughter needed to be to appointments. I knew that my son had different activities after school that I wanted to help him be more able to go to, instead of having my husband only able to pick him up at certain times. And I was sick of having to try and use PTO when there wasn't enough PTO in the world to accommodate occupational therapy every week, and still living a normal life. So I hadn't prayed about anything. I had jumped, and it was a bad jump, and we were losing money. And so by June, I had closed it down, and in June I was praying and just saying, you know, God, I don't know what we're going to do here. And a friend asked me to meet her for coffee and just said, she said, you know, I'm looking for someone to pitch me to be a guest on podcasts if you want to help me. And I said, sure. I mean, what am I doing? Why not? I had just been doing some kind of social media stuff and whatever kind of freelance work on social media, basically. And she said, yeah, that'd be great if you could help out and just kind of help with that stuff. I said, sure thing. So we started working together, and she was having a lot of success and started getting people that were referring or reaching out to her to get my contact information. So I've actually been able to this year work from home and run a podcast guest booking business and still have the flexibility to be there for the kids, which has been phenomenal, because then it's allowed me to, in addition to focus on that stuff, I've also been able to change what they're eating as well and get them on not quite so much processed, refined foods and stuff like that, and do some more meal prep and stuff, which has been really, really great.
Isn't it amazing how God works? Like, and here, rather than sitting here, you know, you could look at it like, you know, with your daughter's situation, like, you know, a downfall, and, you know, oh, it's, you know, she's got these issues and this issues. Like, it's actually, it's not a burden. It's actually a blessing, because keeping you into helping her and assisting her and so forth, it keeps you out of the urge for the alcohol and to go backwards and to, you know, be focused on things that you have gone through and things that are already in the past. Here, you know, people could see it as a suffering, but actually it's a saving. You know, it's saving you from, you know, going backwards and focusing on something else that is, you know, not alcohol, not a codependent, you know, whatever way to survive different situations. So, you know, one thing I can say, especially to the listeners out there, you know, you really have to open up. And as you said, number one, pray about it. But number two, like, open up your mind and see that, is it really something that you're so, you know, that you're suffering, or is it saving you from something? You know, is it saving you from a different route that you're not supposed to be on? And I mean, look at you even too with the insurance business, and then here, you know, you pray about it, and now you're doing podcasting stuff. And the best part about podcasting is you're telling your story. It's not really even work. I mean, I know you're scheduling other individuals too, but you get to hear their stories, and you get to see their stories, and you get to, you know, just be with your family. But then at the same time, you know, it's again, it's the little things that actually are the big things. And it is things like being with your family, and, you know, being present, and, you know, living how, you know, life is supposed to be lived, not, you know, in a insane asylum like half the peoples are that are working all this crazy hours and, you know, having no life, and you're just like tied to this job. And it's what a horrible way to live, you know. And that's being in your
my stress and anxiety are so much better. Like,
see, yes. It's crazy that, you know, and such a blessing. Like, you are a prime example of, you know, you have to have faith. You have to have faith, and you need to pray, and you need to keep that relationship. Again, who wants to be, if I'm reaching out to you every time only when I need something, eventually you're going to be like, the hell with you. I'm not going to provide to you. You just reach out when you need something. But when you build that relationship, you know, you're building that relationship, and you're deepening that relationship, and you're not only going, you know, I always said to people, we're always healing. Like, I will never be fully healed. You shouldn't be. You always want to be better. You always want to help others and so forth. And you always want to fix your mistakes. We're all human. We make mistakes. But you know that you are on the right path and you are going in the right direction when your prayers are no longer being something that you're asking, like, God, please give me this. God, please help with that. Please. And your prayers are now being shifted and turned to thankfulness. You know, thank you so much for letting me be the vessel to work, you know, with Sara today. And, you know, thank you for letting me be in that specific situation that I was able to help that lady at the store or whatever. You know, I now pray. I mean, and don't get me wrong, of course I still pray for things that, you know, please God my way. You know, I ask for like things like that, but no longer do I pray for the destruction that was around me, because I now see things in such a grateful light and aspect that I'm more thankful than I am needy per se. I mean, it's probably not a good words to use, but you get what I'm saying.
I absolutely get what you mean. Yes, it completely makes sense. And I think
And
too that
yeah.
if you are just open to what God is trying to use you for and seeing that there's a different purpose. So like for me, for example, I have shared different parts of my testimony, and I've noticed that people say like, oh, they tell me that they find it brave that I do it. And to me, I don't say this out of an arrogance. I don't find it to be brave. It's something that I feel called to do. It's something that I want to do. I had someone else that was asking me about setting up a time to talk, and they said, oh, I'm really not sure like about your story. And I said, oh, here's my whole testimony. You can just tell me what works for you, because truly I'm not here to talk about this isn't about me. I have a whole story, and I want to share with people however I can make a difference for them. And so I think if you just are really open to how God can use you, because it can be in the smallest way, because it might not seem like a big deal to you, because that's what you're called to do. So it comes to you easily, but everybody else, it doesn't come to them easily. And so you have to really hear that.
Yes. I tell people, I'll get the same thing. They'll be like, you're brave, you're courageous to do that. And I tell them, hey, listen, I lived my story. I don't tell my story for pity. I don't tell my story for attention. I don't tell my story even for any even acknowledgement for myself. But I know that my story is someone else's survival guide. And that is why I tell it. I don't tell it for myself. I already lived it. Of course, I don't want to, I don't want to live it again. I don't want to, tell my story for anything that, attention of the chaos and trauma that I already lived. This is not for me at all. It's for you. It's for the listeners. It's for the people that I remember when I was in that darkness and I could not see. I am telling it for that person who is craving to hear my words of how I got out, what I did to get out, that there's hope, that you are going to come to the light, being that advocate to know that you got to go through, but on the other side, that's where the beauty is. But you got to do the work. Nothing in life, as they say, is free. You have to do the sacrifice to be saved. And that's going through the darkness. That's the only way.
And I think that's something.
I apologize, Sarah. And tell me if you feel this way too. Every trauma survivor that I talk to, they say, I say, if you would rather be born again into a perfect family, a perfect life, or born into the same life that you had, which one would you choose? And they all say, I would choose the one that I had, because it has opened my eyes to so much and made me realize so much. I'm thankful now for the suffering, because I am now in a whole different world of, you realize the sacrifices, and now you're in God's glory.
Absolutely.
Really, and
absolutely.
What would you say, Sarah, going back to the drinking and that, individuals that are still on codependency type situations, whether it's, drinking, drugs, going from one relationship to another relationship and so forth, what advice would you give someone in regards to how to break that codependency, or what made you finally realize that was what it was, and the reason that you were, utilizing those situations for the core situations? What kind of advice would you give them for someone that maybe is in that situation right now?
I mean, I guess really take an honest look at what's happening after you're going out with your friends, to see if this is you. Are you always kind of calling somebody to get a little recap because you forgot all of the things that happened and you're just not really sure, or you read through your texts and now you're terrified to talk to people, or you feel like you need to apologize to people, or you're not sure what those outgoing calls were about. Like, maybe you need to sit down and really see what's going on. Like, not just look at you, but like look at all of the aspects in your life. Because for me, what it was is I was juggling too much and thinking I could do too much. I was working in a corporate job, trying to be a type A, high achieving person looking to get higher up, trying to be a full-time mom, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good friend and go out and be at every party and I was trying to do all of the things. And you
weren't
can't be a good
authentic.
mom if you're not home.
Living authentic. Yeah, you were living.
Yeah.
You were basically living for others and not for yourself. Because when you live in your authenticity, you're at peace. You know what I mean? You're
Yes.
doing what is for you. And as you're stating in your response that, you were trying to be a mom, a wife, a friend, a this, a that, basically for everyone else. And
Yes.
here you're trying to be the saving grace or the savior for everybody else while you were killing your own self internally,
Mm-hmm.
and then coping with, with poison, basically, to decide. So, yeah. So, I mean, what would you say to somebody that is realizing those things and they're like, I need help? Like, what would be a suggestion? Of course they have like AA, but like what would their first route be? What would you suggest that they, to make a move and to actually stick to sobriety and finding their way? What route would you suggest for someone like that?
I mean, the first thing you've got to do is make a commitment to yourself that you're going to do it. I would, first of all, the first thing we did was got rid of all the alcohol. But I would also try and find someone, if you can find someone that would be accountable with you. I downloaded an app called, what's it called? I downloaded an app called I Am Sober, and there's actually an online community in there. So you put in like the reason that you want to get sober. You can put what it's from. It tracks days, minutes, hours. You can put in like, because my family deserves better than this, or you can put a picture of your family, or, and you can go in and edit it and change it. And then you can also see other people who are on the same day as you. So maybe you don't have someone that that you can, or maybe your friends are like mine and they were like, maybe you're friends, because you need to be really cautious with your relationships when you're making a change like this. Because if your friendships are only taking place in the situations that are unhealthy for you, then those friendships are probably also unhealthy for you. Because when I made the choice to stop drinking, a lot of people said, not like forever, right? And I was like, yeah, no, actually, I'm ruining my family. Absolutely forever.
Yes.
So I wouldn't necessarily say, tell your friends, yes. But then I will say I tried for a while to stay friends with them and still go out. That wasn't the path. Because you're not changing your heart, you're not changing what you're doing. Just because you're not using the coping mechanism, you're still taking part in in a good chunk of the action. You're still removing yourself from home, from the parenting, so it was still a way of running away from me to, I'm just going to go sit with them. I won't go as long, but I was still leaving. And I'm not saying I can't go to Bible study or go to dinner or whatever, but
No, I
not
get
at
it.
that.
You're basically like a flower and you're put into this pot. Well, now you're outgrowing the pot, but in order to keep blooming, you got to change your environment because otherwise you're only going to grow as far as this pot. Now, if you take it and put it in a garden, you're going to quadruple, you're going to get larger. Hey, you might even be, lo and behold, you might even not even been a plant. You were actually a tree. You know what I mean? Like you can't discover those things if you're stuck in the environments. And I have a lot of individuals because my trauma was through abuse and such. So I have a lot of domestic abuse and things like that that I help individuals with. And they'll say, how do I stop, loving them? Or how do I stop, allowing them to treat me like this? And it's like how you allow it to stop is you stop allowing it. You have to remove yourself from the environment. It's like going into a bar and drinking poison and then saying, why am I sick? Well, because you just drank the poison. You keep putting yourself in those environments. You can't wonder why you're dying, because if you water yourself with poison instead of water, that's what you're going to do. You're going to kill yourself, and people don't realize it in that aspect until you put it in a logical form. And, it's okay to say goodbye to relationships or even love people in a distance, and say,
Yes.
you know what, I'm here for you. I want the best for you. But the way that I always put it is that, you can love someone from a distance, but just like an analogy, when you walk up to a stove, you could get so close to the stove, but if you get too close, you're going to get burned. And that's just it. You can stand from afar and you can see what's cooking, but sometimes you just can't walk up to the flame because it's going to burn you. And as they say, people are there for, what is it, a lifetime, a season, or a reason, or whatever
Yes, yeah.
It's exactly true. Like, these people were there to get you to whatever next step you were at. And now you are just a different person. You're in a different life. You're in a different level of life. And the more you keep entertaining the past, the lower, you're basically turning around levels. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like running a race and you're at mile 9, but you want to go back to mile 5. Well, you're not going to get to the finish line and get the prize and your medal if you keep going backwards to mile 5 when you're at mile 9, like that's how it works. And until you realize that, and anyone then the true friends, and when you are in your authenticity, nothing is toxic and nothing is stressful because the people that are around you are on those levels as well. So you never have to change yourself or be a different person because they're doing that with you. So the true friends, like let's say it was you and I going out and drinking all the time. And I'm like, you know what, Sarah, I'm sick of drinking too. Let's do this together. I would be moving with the levels with you because I'm that committed to my life, just like you are. So we would hang out because we don't need alcohol to hang out. Like, you understand, some people are just enablers. And once you start realizing that they weren't actually true friends, they were enabling the situation, those aren't friends at all. Those aren't people that love you and want the best for you. They just love you for what? Love is unconditional, not based on conditions. So if someone is only caring for you, loving you, and wanting you based on the condition of insert whatever, in your case, drinking, then that's not love. That's not care. That's something with a condition, and that's not real, So
Exactly.
And that is, again, going back to the whole destruction to discover. So this is your time to discover they weren't true friends. They were acquaintances that were built on conditions, and that's not a friend,
Absolutely.
And so many people say, like, when they go through the trauma, they're like, no one was there for me in my darkest days. And they're not, because they weren't there for you from the get-go. They were there for you for the conditions that you provided. That's why they're not there for you when the dark is as dark as it is, because they're not meant to come to the next place with you, because they're not part of that.
Exactly.
So that's so amazing that you have been sober how long now? It's been like I think you said a year.
January of January of 2024. So it'll be 2 years in January.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Congratulations. And I'm sure you
Thank you.
feel amazing other than just obviously less toxic and, environments and so forth. I'm talking on a health level,
Yes, on a health level for sure. Because we also were cigarette smokers and stopped that. So it's been,
nice.
we
See?
both are so much healthier.
And I'm sure, the fighting and arguing and all that has subsided too, which, in turn, that's something that a lot of individuals don't realize is when you're in toxic environments, take away the alcohol, take away just whatever, just not seeing eye to eye and having fights or arguments, you're teaching your children what love is not and not what love is, because they're going to be grown thinking that, okay, love is a toxic environment. So they're going to actually entertain toxic people because they always knew love as mom and dad yelling at each other, mom and dad, hitting each other, or dad punching a wall, or dad walking away, or whatever it is that happens behind closed doors. And your children see that as love. So then when they go out and they get into the dating field and they're at that point in their life, they entertain toxicity. They don't actually entertain love because they don't know it's foreign to them, just like how you had stated with the Catholic religion that you were in. I'm sure you were in that religion because your parents brought you to that, or your parents had, baptized you as that structure. And here, lo and behold, now you're in the Christian faith because that's where your true authenticity and your connection is, not the religion based that someone told you or someone made you do, or, again, the subconscious of what someone else brought upon you. So
yes, exactly.
Wow, that's amazing. Like what a true awesome story. And have you ever thought about, or have you wrote a book or gave a workbook or some sort to help individuals through the journey that you've been through?
I haven't. Someone mentioned that the other day to me, writing a book, and I was like, that is not something I had thought about, but
see, look at that. Second person, maybe I'm on something.
I'm like,
maybe
okay.
This is my voice being told to you on what you're meant to do. Because I'll tell you, I wrote my book too. So mine is, I come from childhood abuse. So mine is Sorry, Satan, the Souls for the Savior. So same thing, I went through abuse, and that's where I was saying with your children, with knowing what love is not and not what love is, and, veering towards those types of people, that my trauma, coming through my spiritual awakening and so forth, that's where I realized that it was toxicity that was making me think was normal, and really it was, peace is what makes you feel normal, and happiness is what makes you feel normal.
You just don't know that.
You should definitely write a book and tell your story and help individuals that, have been through similar situations as you. And again, the stories are the survival guides for those that, are still out there, that are looking for some sort of direction, or, someone to answer hope. There's someone out there praying for something that many take advantage of. And look at, here was you praying for this job, and now look where you are from someone reaching out. You see?
Right.
That's amazing.
I know. That's one day, I can't remember what someone asked me one day, something about well, how are you doing that? And I said, Brandon, what would they say if I told them I don't really know how I'm doing any of this, that I just wait for God to tell me every day? Because that's what I feel like. I have an idea, but I genuinely just feel like I talk to God, and then I just kind of start my day and things get rolling. And
yeah, you're letting him lead, right? God's plan.
Yeah,
that's exactly
that's what we're doing.
I totally can relate. I used to be the structured, OCD, organized, this is going to happen, that, blah, 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 an itinerary of my day every day. And now I'm like,
yes.
how are you? I'm like, I'm just living. Like, I don't really know what I'm
Yes,
doing, but I'm
100%.
living. Yes. I feel like, but that is the authentic way. You have to trust. You have to trust and know. And anyone, if it's working for everybody, there obviously is a method to the madness per se, because so many people say the same thing. They're like, I'm just rolling with it. I don't know. I'm just going. I'm just letting, the good old Lord take me to wherever I'm supposed to be. And when you do that, he will not let you fail. There's a reason that the two words of fear not are in the Bible 365 times, because there's 365 days in this world. So, in these years. So,
Right.
you can't have fear. You have to just go and know and trust. And that's what I do every day. I'm like, Lord, please use me as a vessel to say whatever words, talk to Sarah and, find her story and how it's going to help others. And, how amazing for you to just be where you are today from wanting to just give up. I mean, realistically,
Really, yeah, that's essentially what I had done. Was I was just existing. I
Yeah.
wasn't living. I was just existing.
Yes.
And I'm now, like, I'm very fully present. Like you were talking about, like, being the scheduled, organized, very, like, that was very much me, very type A. And like a really great example of that is, like, now I found a coloring book tablecloth, and that's been
Oh,
on my table for like 10 days, and I haven't taken it off because she keeps using it, but it's really like ripped, and but I'm letting it stay. And that
yeah.
really would have gone against everything. Like 1 year
You were
ago, that
throwing in the
thing,
garbage.
long gone, long gone. But now I'm just like, it's not that big of a deal. Who cares?
That's so
It,
funny.
but it's
For the
silly
listeners
stuff.
that are listening, Sarah, for anyone that feels like unseen or exhausted or just like afraid and lost hope, like what would you say to them what would you want them to know? What would you say to them if they're at that point that they're hopeless?
I would say a couple of things. I would say that, first of all, God sees everything, literally everything. If you were slighted by someone and you feel that it was unfair, don't worry yourself with that. Don't concern yourself with that, because God sees that and he will address that as it needs to be. That's something that I have been so guilty of in my life. But something else is that I would encourage you to look. This is something that I have done, is to look in your life for someone close to you that maybe even you have conflict with, but that might also feel unseen, and do something for them to let them know that you see them. Don't
That's awesome.
make a big deal. Don't do anything. Like, don't like post it all over the internet. Just an act of kindness to let them know that you see them and they exist and that you care about them. It will make you feel so much better, because that person will feel so uplifted to know that they are seen by you. It's just, it doesn't sound like it's a gift that you can give yourself, but I promise you that uplifting feeling that you get from seeing the reaction from that other person is so, so, so worth it.
Yes.
And just know that our Creator knows your worth. And if he took time to put value into all of the things in nature, like the birds and the flowers and the weeds and the snakes, you are worth far more than that. So
Yes.
please get into the Word and read about that and really know that, because it is so true.
I love that. That's beautiful. Yes. And doing kindness for others without reciprocation is actually a form of dopamine. And that's unfortunately living in a world of convenience where commitment is so vague. Many seek that dopamine fix constantly. You know, they're always want more, do more, get more. That's the society that we live in. And I wholeheartedly believe that that is like the devil's work too. Like, we were put through even school systems that we have to get more, be more, do more, achieve more. And that's because money's the root of all evil. And the individuals that structured that are because they want us to be those working robot non-individuals, you know, no feeling, no emotion, just keep work, more,
Right.
to produce money and income and so forth. And so, you know, once you realize that you don't have to live that way, you know, and get rid of that ego of wanting recognition to do more for people and the, you know, look at me, ooh, and like you said, put it on the internet and all that. Like, that's not what life is about. Life is about love. Love
Yes.
is the emotion that brings us, as I said earlier, it's the great, you know, suffering and the great love. And the suffering is what gets you to the love side. And then from the love side on, you know, Jesus only gave 2 commandments, which was love yourself and love your neighbor. There's a reason for that, because love is the answer. And
Yes.
doing something for someone else is that dopamine, you know, chemical that's released of feeling good, and then you're doing for others. And that's what it's supposed to be. And it is a rippling effect, because once that person feels that embrace, they want to be the warm embrace for another, and, you know, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So when you make acknowledgement to it, that's where you take away the sincerity and the affection and the emotion of doing it.
And I think it's more than doing, you know, the pay for the Starbucks behind you. You know, it's find someone who, like, really see someone. Don't just do the easy, convenient thing and pay for the guy behind you that's already there. Like, go out of your way and find somebody and get them something that's unique to them.
Yes, definitely. Like, or even a mom that you see that's overworked, like, you know, babysit their kids for a night or something. I don't know. Obviously,
Right.
that we are closer to, but, you know, something in that nature where it's things that, something that they can't even do for themselves. Maybe like anyone could buy themselves a Starbucks cup of coffee. I mean, that's the whole reason they're in line. They obviously know they're going to be buying themselves coffee, but, you know, not everyone thinks that someone's going to go out of their way to watch their children or, you know,
Yes.
whatever, you know, to help them bring their groceries to their house when they're, you know, have a broken leg or something, and, you know, go do their grocery shopping for them or something in that nature, that, like, it's not something that people just do, you know, every day, where
Exactly.
Starbucks is something that's every day.
Right.
Wow, how amazing is that? So what else are you, you know, what type of things going into 2026 are you, you know, what do you have planned? Like, what's your 5-year plan, or let's just say going forward, and hey, if you don't want to stress over 5 years, we'll just say into 2026. What do you foresee yourself with the gift of life and rebirth, and, you know, moving forward from trauma and you know, being a vessel for the Creator? What do you see yourself doing or moving towards?
I think ideally I will just continue to share my story and help people as much as I am able to, and hopefully, God willing, continue to grow my business and share other people's stories, because the people I work with are people that are making a difference. And so that's why I love doing what I do, because those people are making a difference. And so just continue to put my time into working with people and my work that is really intentional and really focused work, and trying to give back everywhere that I'm able to without taking away from home.
I love that. I love that. And I love it even for you too, that you are building this, beautiful home now and not having all the struggle and the chaos and the, just putting your faith literally in God and letting it go. Like they say, let go and let God, right?
Absolutely.
And it is the way, I'm telling you. Sara, thank you so much. I am so honored for your time, for your story, for, giving listeners advice and just really hope overall, and knowing that if you have faith, you can overcome mountains. You truly, truly can. And God will never fail. He hasn't failed me. And trust me, I am one to always think, what if and oh no, and it's
right.
I'm a mom, and so it's like sometimes I think, oh no, what if this happens? But you get to a point where you can't. You just got to surrender. You have to surrender and let it go. And I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's amazing once you do that. And I'm so honored that I get to be on this journey with you, even because we're in the same boat. We're just on different, canoe paddles.
Right. Absolutely.
Just keeping ourselves afloat. We don't know where, but we're just going.
Right. Yes. I'll just get there.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And do you have any last words for listeners or closing advice or anything?
I would just say, just believe in yourself. You are probably doing a lot better than you think you are. We are our own worst critics. So really work on the things that you say to yourself, because I bet you wouldn't let your best friend say those words about themselves. So don't say them about yourself. And yeah, thank you so much. This has been just awesome. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, thank you. You as well. And don't forget, one thing I can say, I remember driving, this was when I was in my lowest point, and I was driving and crying, and I was like, I just don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Like, I just feel like crap, same thing. Like you said, all the bad things in my head. And I'll never forget this song came on. And I feel like that's a lot of how the spirit works, is through songs and nature. And it was Wonderful from Tones and I. And it was basically just saying you are wonderful. Whenever you doubt, look up at the sky. If you have a chance, go listen to that song.
I'm going to, yeah.
By Tones and I tell people that song all the time, because it's don't doubt yourself. Just look up at the sky to the light, and you will know. He will show you the way. And that's just keep going the way. So you were brought in here for a reason, and you'll be brought to that reason if you just surrender and, allow that. So, and you're just so wonderful. That's what you have to realize, is that you are wonderful. What you think of yourself is what other people put into your head, and from experiences and situations. It's not reality. Right. You were wonderfully made. That is what he says. And that's why you have to know that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Sara. It's been a pleasure. And I pray for you, your family, your destination on your journey of life. And thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today and hearing Sara's incredible journey on Bottoms Up, turning trauma to transformation. Her story reminds us that even in the hardest season, transformation is possible. Remember to trust the process. Place faith when you have doubt. Pruning is a must because it helps you grow. And believe that even in the most difficult chapters, you have to take one step at a time, embrace the life that you are meant to live, because beauty comes through the experience of burdens. Thanks again for joining me on Bottoms Up. This is your host, Carrie Hamilton, and don't forget how amazing you are. See you soon.